Hello and welcome to Scale Car Garage. Well, we have two running chassis for our Alfa Romeo Duetto Spiders, and they actually went around the track. And I think we've got some potential fun here. But to make them even more fun, we have to mount the chassis to the body. So without further ado, let's get straight to it here at Scale Car Garage. All right, so we're going to try and marry the bodies to the chassis. And this is going to be a little more complex than usual because we want to try and keep the doors opening for no other reason than to have opening doors on a slot car, which is reason enough. What I have here are the other parts that we'll need to complete the cars, and I thought we'd go and start with the red Alfa Spider. I've got the doors in place. I've put the windscreen in place, and you can see just because it's, it was a die cast, it's held in place with these two pins. Now I should mention, because we're semi-assembling, for lack of a better description, the body before we mount it to the chassis, we're going to have to assemble the interior and then fit the chassis to the body and interior. And then if that fits really, really well, we're going to have to do some fiddling around the front of the car where the guide blade is. Because if you take a look here, I'll show you very quickly, there's the sort of under tray here that the die cast has, and the under tray fits onto the bumper. That's actually two pieces. I'm sorry. I apologize for recapping, but I just want to make sure that y'all can see this. So here we go. Okay, so there is the bumper part, and I've detailed it for the red car. I haven't done this for the white car because I didn't think we could use the white car, but I'm delighted that I think it's going to be it's fine. It's going to be good. So there's the under tray for the car right there that you can see, and the bumper part, lack of a better description, assembly, I call it that, has two holes that line up and go right into the under tray like so. And then this will then go into these two holes right here in the body, and you will have, now it's starting to look like an Alfa Spider, isn't it? That's so cool. And of course we have the grill as a separate part that slides in the front, but you can see how much material there is here. And once we put, let's just grab a chassis for measurements. We're going to have to actually remove quite a bit of it, really. But that will be done once we have the chassis and the body aligned as we wish it to be. So let me just put this back in here. Now, so we need the body. I've put, of course, the rear boot cover, lack of a better description, or roof cover. And I'm not going to paint that. I'm just going to leave it that color. I think it looks fine. I cast the interior in black, and I think that looks fine. I did do some detailing on the dashboard, and I hope you can see that. But just the dials and the air inlets, the little lock for the glove box. By the way, does anyone actually put gloves in their glove box? Random thought. And some dials there. And I actually took the sticker that was on the die cast, scanned it, and then put some adhesive on the back, and it stuck. So there we go. Now, the good news is we don't have to worry about the steering wheel at this point. We can choose to use the steering wheel that came with the die-cast car, or we can use a different steering wheel depending upon the driver that we put in. So luckily we don't have to decide on that now, but here's what we have to assemble before we marry the chassis to the body. So the dashboard, which again aligns with the same two pins that hold the windshield, quite convenient, really. And then we have to take the body, or sorry, interior tray that we created and marry that to the car. And once that's glued in place, we will have, as you can see, functioning doors. Now, whether the doors will actually stay closed as the car goes around, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But as you can see here, this has to be a single unit, lack of a better description, before we can then take the chassis and align it as we wish. And actually, I didn't realize this is going to be like this. Wow, actually, that's going to align quite nicely, actually. Look at that. Now, we will have to fettle this a little bit. Love that word. So that the car sits properly. But yeah, that's lining up quite nicely. And of course, we'll have to get spacers for the front axle. But for our purposes now, we're going to have to assemble these bits. So let's do that. The first thing we're going to have to do is put some super glue on these two pins here, and that will hold, well, actually, you know what I will do? We'll super glue the windshield to the body first, and then the glue is still hopefully sticky. We'll super glue the dashboard, and that'll be our first step. So why don't we do that now, and let's just move a few things away when we're working with super glue. I'm sure you've had this same experience where you know, they don't call it super glue for nothing. It'll glue anything together. All right, so let's adhere. And we can put a drop here. There we go. Like that. And a drop here. So, like that. Let's put the dashboard in. And hopefully that will stay. So let's let this cure, and then once it's cured, we'll glue in the interior tray. This is exciting. Oh my goodness. Okay. All right. Let's be patient, and I'm going to move forward in time, if you don't mind, because I want to make sure that this first step of the body assembly works well. All right, we've fast forwarded in time a wee bit, and I'm just holding the interior tray or compartment or parts in the car, as you can see, to make sure that it sets properly. And here's the good news. If you take a look, the doors open. That's great. Whoops. And I think that's going to work really well. It's still a bit moist, if you can see right there. Trying to hold that gently. Hold it very gently. Okay, so I think it's safe to put down. One down. Now, Admittedly, with the white Duetto Spider, I guess I should paint the interior, although, well, I suppose I could always paint it afterwards, although that'll be a chore. But I think we'll be okay. I think it's great. It's supposed to be a club racer anyway, right? I mean, right. So, oh, of course, here's the other issue, though. Why I was thinking of painting the interior, because I have to paint the windscreen. I also have to paint the dashboard. Although it's the same color as the interior, so that's not too bad, but at least it needs details, and I already printed off a set of dials that we can stick into the dial area here that hopefully you can make out, but these need to be detailed, and a few other items like the door cards. There's a grill. Oh, right, yes, the rear lights and so forth. Okay, so there's still a little bit of work to do on the white Spider, although the reason being was that I did not even think that that this car was even usable. But you know, it's not perfect, I know, but heck, good enough to race around the track, I think. Right. Okay, so let's see how this is doing. Well, what we could do is let's set up one car, go to school on the red Duetto Spider and get it as close to going around the track as we can, because I have a lot of those parts detailed. And then with what we've learned from getting this car on the track, we'll then apply to the white Duetto Spider. I think that's a good strategy. So let's keep going with the red Alfa Duetto Spider. Of course, we have to wait for this to still cure. But I think that's what we're going to do. So let's get the red one going around the track, and then with the knowledge of what we've done to make that happen, we can proceed with the white Duetto Spider, and then we'll have two cars that we can actually drive around the track. But I hope you see that, I mean, I can already see this car going around, and I'm trying to think of what number to put on, and anyway, it's getting really exciting, folks. So, right, let's let this interior cure to the body, and then we'll just keep going. So, see you soon. While the interior of the red Alfa was curing, I decided to detail the parts of the white Alfa and ended up doing what I hope is all of the necessary paintwork for both cars. The windshield and dashboard of the white car were completed, along with the steering wheels for both cars. The wheels were painted silver for one chassis and gold for the other. The bumper and grille for the white car were detailed, as were the boot cover and door cards, along with the wheel inserts, mini lights for the silver wheels, and 5-point star inserts for the gold wheels. Time to allow the paint to dry and mount a body to a chassis. Well, folks, as I said, I went ahead and mounted the red Alfa to the chassis, and the chassis I chose was the chassis with the gold wheels. I think the gold wheels and the 5 stars will look really good on this car. But I didn't really record it because I don't think anyone should be exposed to that level of profanity. Seriously, it actually went together easier than I anticipated. If you take a look, it really mounted very, very nicely. You know, sometimes when you anticipate the worst, the best comes through. More importantly, though, went to school on this car, and I think I have a really good idea of how we're going to mount the white Alfa to its chassis. So the white Alfa will have the chassis with the silver rims, and those silver rims will have the mini lights, and I think it'll look really, really sharp. That being said, let me take you through the method that I used through discovery to now mount the second chassis to the white Alfa. I'm really, really pleased. Had to do a little bit of shimming on this one. May not have to do that on the first one. Just thought I'd mention that. You see these little white pieces of plastic, and they didn't need much, just a little bit of fettling. Here we go. Got to use that word. Anyway, let's get going on putting this chassis on this car and getting them closer to the track. Now, for the first step of putting the chassis to the body, we're going to need, believe it or not, just a pencil. And let me take you through how that's done. So, fitting the body to a chassis, you're really just trying to align it as best you can by eye, or at least that's what I did for the red one, and that's what we're going to do for the white one. And there are various ways of doing this. You can fettle the word again, chassis to the body like so that you're trying and get it. Or if you are fortunate to have a setup block or even a piece of track, put the chassis on the piece of track or the setup block, then put the body on top, and you can kind of see how it's sitting a little too low in the back. I don't know if you can see that, and a little too high in the front, and you can see how we can just lift it a little bit, and that's where this piece of plastic will come into play, because thin styrene, and we'll see how many layers for the red Alfa. I actually had to use 2 of these, one on top of another, which I glued using styrene solvent, and then placed it on top, and then super glued those shims to the bottom of the body. But first, let's just make sure that we get the placement of the chassis to the body correct. So another way, and this is what I did for the red one, and it worked really quite well, because we want to align the body not only laterally, fore and aft, but also laterally, side to side. So, believe it or not, I used my fingers to kind of feel the distance from the outside rear wheel to the rear fender, and then my eye to see if I had the chassis in the right spot. And then I went, oh, that feels pretty good. I rotated it and put a little bit of pressure on the chassis to the body. And now, bear in mind, it's pretty slippery because it's brass on resin. But at least here I can see that the rear wheels are aligned, and they rotate quite nicely, which is good. So we have good spacing here, and that the guide blade or guide flag is in the center of the car, aligning with the, well, in this case, the mount for the front grille. And so I think we're in a pretty good spot. What I did then was I took a pencil and just drew on the chassis. And that's one side done. I'm going to try and draw as much as I can for the other side. And I think that's a pretty good indication of where the chassis should be mounted to the body. You can see that we've got good rotation of the wheels here. All right, and of course we haven't put spacers in the front wheels yet, which we will, but it's more important to make sure that the rear wheels are aligned so that they rotate and car can go around the track. That's kind of important. The good news is I think we're in pretty good shape here. Now that we know pretty closely to where the chassis should be on the body, we have to drill some holes in the mounting plates on the chassis to fit to the car. So what I did with the red Alfa was I actually put the holes through the seats, because that was the thickest part of the resin, and it worked really well. So that's what we're going to do for this car. Now the great thing is, because we have opening doors, see, there's always a good always good unintended consequences. I can actually see where the seat is and where the hole should be for the chassis. Isn't that great? So again, pencil time. And if the chassis is moving around a little bit, that's okay, but it gives you a really good idea of where to drill the hole on the chassis mounting plate, or the mounting plate on the chassis, excuse me. Guys, getting excited here. This is so much fun. So let's do that. Yep, right about here. It's a good spot right there. I'll just make a little dot with a pencil, see? And if we drill the hole, we'll probably have to drill it a little more this way inside the plate. So, but we've got the right spot, and that's what's important. And if we go to the other side, it will probably be directly across. Let's check. Open this door, and yes, directly across it shall be. Right there. All right. So now we know where the holes should be drilled on the chassis mounting plates. We have our drill press. I'm gonna put the body out of harm's way here, if I may. And I chose self-tapping screws that are very, very short. And I don't know if you can see that here. Let me hold them with some tweezers. They're very short, because we don't want them to go through the seats. We just want them to be in that resin to hold the chassis to the body. Okay, so I took my vernier calipers, oops, to see the size of the drill bit we should use, and it turned out to be 3/32. Perfect. So we're going to put that in our drill press here. There we go. Put that nice and tight in the chuck. Now, okay. Good show. And get the setup plate out of harm's way as well. Now, before we even turn on the drill press, let's make sure we've got everything in the right spot here. That's what we're going to do here. Let's see, hopefully you can see that. And that is where we want to drill. Right there. Okay, hopefully you can see that. I'll switch hands so you can see. That's where we want to drill, right there. Okay, so let's turn on the drill press and drill our first hole. There's our first hole. And you'll notice that there's a burr on the back. And believe it or not, because it's brass, you can actually take a hardened steel knife, and I'll show you. You can just remove the burr. See that? Like so. Now you could use a file, but I find this to be a really quick method of removing drill burrs from brass. Just make sure that the knife you use is hardened steel, which this is actually. It's really a lovely knife. And there we go. You can see burr's gone. Right. So let's just take a look and see how our hole is going to line up. Looks pretty good. Oh yeah. Oh. It lines up very, very well. It's neat that you can open the door to see and go, oh yeah, look at that. It's good. That's great. Didn't have to do any mounting posts or anything. This is very cool. And again, I went to school on the red Alfa, and I thought, well, let's try it on the white one. Okay, almost wiped off my other little dot there. There's the dot right there. Okay. So let's drill our second hole. And pardon me for getting in the way of the camera here, but I have to make sure it's secure. Oh, let's shut it off, make sure we line it up. That's where we want the hole, right there. Beautiful. All right, turn on our... There we go. Not exactly where we wanted it. Let's hope that works. Let's just take a quick look here. Get the burr off. There we go. So it sits flat. It did move a wee bit, but it should work. Let's see. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Should work. Okay, well, let's move the drill press out of the way to give ourselves some more counter space and do the next step. So we have the holes drilled into the pans, and I know they're not exactly across. That was my mistake. The red one's good though. So now what we have to do is make sure that when we mount the chassis that the car has a nice, not only a nice stance, but also is functional and centered within the body. So to get the stance right, I think you can see that it's sitting a little too low in the back. So just as I had to do with the red Alfa, I'm using this very thin plastic because I might have to double up on it. So I think that's going to be the case, and let's just measure and see. Probably need this. Oh, by the way, the great thing about this thickness of styrene, you can cut it with scissors. It's amazing. It's great stuff. So let's just do that. Take a nice piece here, and oh, I have to trim that a wee bit. Okay, so we have one for the left and one for the right. I think we're probably going to have to double it up, but let's see, just cut it roughly in half, because that's what I had to do for the red one. So I'm just anticipating a very similar setup, and if that's the case, take these two pieces and put them over the hole of here, and we'll take these two pieces and put them over here, and if the white alpha is like the red alpha. When we put the body on with those two shims, it should sit perfectly. Well, not perfect, but let's see if we move them back a wee bit more, which we might have to do. Let's see how that will work. Well, let's take a look here. Yes, there we go. There we go. Definitely what we need. So let's create our shims. We have our styrene solvent. And I'm just going to take these two pieces of styrene and just fuse them together, like so. All right. Just going to fuse it like that. That's actually all it takes. Here's one block done. There, okay. And let's fuse these two. Oops. Square them up a little more. I thought I was being clever. There we go. And let's just fuse that up here. Make sure it's secure. And there we go. So that's the way we want these shims to work with the body, almost like little levers, if you will. So let's let that cure. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to glue the shims to the underside of the body. And the way we're going to do it actually is we're going to put 2 drops of super glue, just 2 drops, tiny little drops, and very carefully we're going to put the body on top of the chassis with the shims, and it should adhere exactly where we want them. So let's do that very carefully now. In fact, this guy over just a wee bit. There we go. Nice. Drop that, because you don't need much of this stuff. You really don't. And sometimes with super glue, less is more. So let's just line that up as best we can. And there we go. Look at that. That's exactly where we need them. Super glue is drying, and isn't that wonderful? That's exactly where we need the shims. As I said, I'm glad I went to school on the red car, because when I was trying to work this out on its own, it was a little challenging, but now that you know what to do, it's easy. And when you're scratch building, you know, it's good to do more than one car of the same type at a time, because you can essentially more than double your productivity, because you learn with one and then progress with the other. So we're going to let this cure, and then we're going to mount the chassis to the body. So we now have the shims on the bottom of the body. We've drilled the holes in the chassis plates, mounting plates. So now we're going to mark where we think the first hole should be drilled. And we want to take our time with this because, well, you drill one hole at a time into the body. And that way you can hopefully align the chassis so that it will be fine. And so what do we need for this? Well, we need some nimble fingers and a pencil. So let's set up our chassis as best we can. There we go. Looks good. Making sure that the car is where it should be. And let's just make a pencil mark right there in the hole. There we go. And that looks pretty good. So let's take, I have a drill bit in a pin vise, and I'm going right for the mark, and I'm just going to make a dimple. I don't want to drill a hole yet because I want to make sure that we've got the spot we want. And again, just making a little dimple. There we go. Just a dimple. See, it's just a little dimple. And let's get the chassis back. Line up that dimple. And try and hold on the dimple. Oh my, look at that. Dimple. I think that's it. Okay. So I think we can drill the first hole. So let's do that carefully. Very carefully. Start it off. Very carefully. Really create a... Okay, before I go too deep and create a hole, let's check again. You can never check too often because if we have to make a change, we can. So there's the first hole. It actually kind of lines up in the... Well, look at that. Looks good to me. Let's drill the hole. And this will be the first hole here. All right. And let's just be... And again, because the plastic is so soft, and these drill bits that I'm using are actually for metal, boy, they cut through the plastic so well. So no need to rush. Take your time. That's what we're going to do. Take our time and make sure that the drill bit is perpendicular to the body, which appears to be from my perspective here. Let's just drill. You can see. Now, we have a hole. Now, let's make sure that the screw can go in before we mount the chassis. Let's oopsies. Let's make sure that the screw goes in as it should. I have a nice short screw here. And it's a self-tapping screw, so you want to try and start it off if you can with your finger. There we go. And then use a screwdriver. Oop, not going in as I would like. Here we go. And a bit on the side there. And there we go. Okay, so the screw has its tap because it is a self-tapping screw. So we've tapped the screw. Let's put the first screw in. Actually, let's the chassis, make sure that we don't lose it. There we go. Like so. And like so. And just see how this all lines up. Okay. Don't want to tighten it, but my goodness. My goodness. Okay, it's looking quite good. So let's tighten it up a wee bit, just a wee bit, like so, and see how that aligns with the car body. And I do believe it does. My goodness. My goodness. Center. Okay, let's make a mark. So made a mark there. Let's check it one more time. I think that is it. I think that is it. As you can see, the second hole, if you do the first hole correctly, is easier. So we have a really good spot there. The guide flag is perfect. The rear wheels are aligned perfectly. I'm going to make a little dimple here, just with the drill bit. There we go. Okay, I think we're in business. All right, let's keep this screw there. Okay, and let's press on with the drilling of the second hole. And again, just taking our time. This drill bit is exceptionally sharp. Okay. Let's get the second screw and tap that in. Again, taking our time. Here we go. Taps in. Wow. Wow. All right. Here we go. First time putting the chassis to the body. Sorry, there's some drill detritus there. Oh my, this is rather exciting. All right, let's get one. Now I'm not going to tighten it down too much. I just want it to be secure, like so. like so. Well, rear wheels are rotating, no problem. I think, well, look at that. Wow. So now we have the white car, or the white Alfa Spider, excuse me, I'm getting very excited here. This is awesome. Look at this. Wow. Wow. Okay. Now we have two cars. Okay, folks. They need detailing. And the doors will, as you can see, are a little unsecured. Not insecured, but unsecured. But I still think, well, how about we take both of them around the track and see if they actually go? We know the chassis go. Let's see how the cars go with the chassis and bodies mated to each other. Let's do it. All right, so here we have it, folks. We're putting them on the track. Now, I really expect these doors not to stay closed. They're pretty floppy. But remember, we haven't put the door cards in. We haven't done any of the real detailing to these cars. We've added the bodies, or mated, I should say, the body to the chassis for each of them, and we just want to see mechanically if they go around the track. So I've got the right lane here. I put the red Alfa Spider in the right lane. Let's try that. Let's see how this goes. Whoa, yeah. Ah, there the doors are flopping around for sure. But that's pretty smooth. Oh, man. Well, I'm really pleased with that, even though the doors are flopping all over the place, but that's okay. Well, let's see how the white one goes. Here we go. Let's see. Whoa. One more. Whoa. That's really good. Now, I have to admit, I got really impatient. And if you look at the white car, I did not even shim the front wheels. So they're still flopping all over the place, but the car still ran really well. So, all right, well, we'll make that part of the detailing. Wow, I am really, really pleased. Okay, sorry, folks. This is really fun. This really is fun, and they look really cool on the track. So we have two running Alfa Spiders that we created really from scratch, because we took a die cast and made molds, made a front motored rear wheel drive chassis from scratch, and put them all together, and they're running. So now we just have to make them look really good, and I think that's going to be the next episode. So I just can't thank all of you enough for all of your wonderful comments. I hope you're enjoying this build, or builds, because we're doing it in a pair. Thank you so much for all of your support. I really do appreciate it. It means so much. And thank you so much for joining me here at Scale Car Garage. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe.